Welcome to the Courage Over Comfort podcast. I'm Sheilla Dare. This is the podcast that's meant to inspire you to step into your courage and out of your comfort zone, because that's where we learn and grow and find out what we're truly capable of. It's outside the comfort zone where all the magic happens. In today's episode, we're talking about claiming your truth. My guest is Franny Nicole. She's the host and creator of the Claiming Your Truth podcast. Franny's in tune with people and the energy they spread, and it's her goal to spread positivity. Being a survivor of extreme bullying, she's constantly trying to better herself and always looking at scenarios to see her part in things. Franny Nicole's podcast is listened to in over 27 countries, and it's her hope that the inspirational words of others will push her listeners to move past their worries and always fight to become the best versions of themselves. Franny is joining the show today to share her personal story with us. Franny, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be on your show.
I'm so incredibly grateful that you are here today with us to share your story.
I know, like I said offline, it is my first time sharing my story, so it's going to get pretty deep.
And I know you're not usually used to being on the other end of the microphone. So
no, I'm not. And now I know how my guests feel when I ask those pressuring questions. And it's not so easy.
It's not. And opening up yourself to be vulnerable and share your personal story just in itself isn't easy. So I appreciate you being here. Your podcast, Claiming Your Truth, as we record this, is coming up on its 1-year anniversary. So congratulations.
It is. Thank you. Thank you. Less than about a month away.
Yeah, very exciting. I've been listening to your show for a while, and in me gearing up to launch my own podcast, you were mentoring me without even knowing it, just by me listening to your show and your style and your inspiration and your guests, and it's been very positive for me. So thank you.
That's such an honor to hear, just because when I put it out there, I don't get any feedback from anybody. So it's nice to know that I'm making a difference to you and having you start your own show and be that inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely. You're building such a great community by what you're doing on your show.
Thank you.
So let's start with that. Tell me the inspiration or the reason behind the creation of the Claiming Your Truth podcast.
Well, I started a podcast because I enjoyed listening to stories of others and relating my life to their stories and being able to heal myself. So I wanted to create a platform where people can come on and share their story and be vulnerable to help others that aren't able to get over whatever trauma or whatever they weren't able to let go. And that all stemmed from being bullied growing up and that lack of love from friends or family. And I was bullied, and everyone can define bullying differently. And for me, bullying was the girls making fun of how I looked, being Hispanic, having a larger nose, and it got so bad where I had to transfer high schools, where I couldn't even go to class anymore, that I was crying in the bathroom. And it's just, girls are so mean. We're both women here, and this is all I want to do is empower women and empower each other. But in high school, you don't think that way. At least back then, we didn't. We didn't have these self-help classes as they do now, and it got so bad I didn't want to go to school anymore.
So your bullying took place primarily in high school by other girls?
It started in elementary school, but it just got so bad to the point because where I grew up, down the street from here, you go to school at elementary with the same people, junior high, the same people, high school with the same people. So having the same people over and over and over again telling you you're ugly, go back to where you came from. I'm like, I'm born and raised in Los Angeles. Yes. What do you mean? This is where I'm from. But I went to a Spanish immersion school, so I was in a Spanish speaking class in elementary school. So the English speaking class would make fun of us and just call us wetbacks, and I'm half white or Caucasian or European or whatever you want to call it. So it's just really racist and bullying in general, and just it carried on with me. And my looks, I didn't have big boobs. I wasn't, whatever the style was at the time, and got to the point where I didn't have any friends or or I didn't think I had friends, and I just wanted to start over. So I changed to a different school. But really changing to a different school is the same type of people. It's just new people bullying you.
And I don't know what, I mean, I went to high school in the 90s. And even then, girls were mean.
Yeah.
I was bullied as well. I had girls that used to stay outside of my class when the bell rang. I'd walk out and 3 big scary girls would be standing there waiting for me to intimidate me and scare me and bully me, where I too would start skipping school. I didn't want to be there. I had trouble making friends. It was very, very difficult. So I think no matter what decade or era you grew up in, I think it's the same. Kids are there are some kids who are themselves struggling, and they are taking it out on the people who they can, and it's unfortunate.
They are mean, and I spent so much of my life trying to get other people to like me that I realized that they're struggling to like themselves, let alone to like you. So don't worry about it. Like, don't worry about others liking you, because they're having a hard time to like themselves.
When you were going through that in high school, did anybody know that was going on with you? Did your family know? Did any teachers know?
I transferred to a high school where my mom was a teacher. So it was like 20 miles away. Nobody knew me. So it was a fresh start for me. And because of that, I became the teacher's daughter. And it was all Hispanic school. So it didn't help me because I was teacher's pet.
Now they had a new way to pick on you.
Now they had a new way. And all the teachers, if I ever was in trouble, they would immediately go to my mom versus working it out with me. And it just was tough because my mom was there. Or I would have girls who really, really loved my mom but hated me because she was my mom. So they would want to fight me, and they would always would say, "Oh, we're gonna jump you after school." And this is in Almani, and it's all Hispanics. And I was scared. I'm like, how can you love my mom but not want to be my friend? You would think you would want to get closer to my mom by being my friend, like use me in a way, but they just were jealous. I don't want to say jealous because of my mom and I, we have a great relationship, but I mean, it's not perfect from I guess what they saw. They considered her like, oh, she's such a cool teacher, and I would love to have her as my mom. And so they would turn around and dislike me. And it was just, there was some days where if the 2 friends that I had weren't at school, I was walking around by myself. And it wasn't because I wasn't social. It was just because there was such a diverse group high school has so many different groups and cliques that I hated school like that. And whoever's listening to this may think that doesn't sound so bad, but to tell it is one thing, but to live through it,
because it wasn't just one incident. It sounds like this spanned many years.
Yeah, it did. And the rumors they would spread, and it's just so childish. And thinking back on it upsets me that I gave it so much power. Like, I reacted so bad to it that it let it control my life for so long. And it caused me to choose friends differently, because I was choosing friends that were bullying me because I was seeking their validation. Because all I wanted was those bullies to like me. All I wanted in life was those type of people to love me. So I only surrounded myself with bullies. When I made friends, it was those ones that were the two-faced kind of friends that weren't really your friends but hung out with you. And I love those type of people because I wanted to prove to myself that I can change them and that I was lovable.
How did the experience of being bullied affect your self-confidence growing up?
For me, I didn't have confidence whatsoever. I couldn't go out or go to parties by myself because I was awkward. I was like that weird girl in the corner that didn't talk to anybody until their friend showed up. It was just, I needed other people to help get that social side out of me. But by myself, I would clam up. So I was so used to just waiting around for other people to bring out the social side of me. I wasn't able to do that on myself. And when I would go out, since I had no confidence, I was overly friendly, where it was like too much, and it was like needy to the point where nobody wanted to be my friend, because it was kind of be my friend, and I need and love me, and it was just that awkward friend that nobody wanted to invite anywhere because I didn't even want to be around myself because I was seeking that validation so much. They can smell it. You can smell it on someone who wants friends so bad. And it's not that I didn't have it, but like I said, I was seeking it from the ones that weren't the right ones, the toxic ones, the bullier ones. And we are all addicted to something that tries to ruin us. And validation was that for me. And I was obsessed with being validated.
Yeah, because those are hard enough years as it is growing up and trying to figure out who you are. And when you already have such low self-confidence or you're seeking relationships for the wrong reason, I feel like it just gets you already off to the wrong start moving into adulthood, because those things affect you for the rest of your life. I mean, I'm still working on healing childhood trauma, and I'm in my 4th decade of life.
And I think some of us don't realize how much childhood trauma affects us today, even if they just like, oh, I forgot about that. But really, it affects your decisions. It affects who you hang out with. It affects so much into your life that once that's healed, you'll start making better decisions. You start hanging out with different people. And it wasn't until I started doing self-development that I realized that hurt me so much. Because I'm like, okay, everyone gets bullied in high school. I didn't realize it affected me as much until I took a look back in the 30 years why I made certain choices and why people hurt me. Is really I was hurting myself for allowing myself to be around them, for choosing them as my friends or choosing them as my boyfriend. And life has a way of teaching us lessons, and if you don't learn, it will repeat it.
Yep. Life's going to keep serving you up the same lesson.
Yeah, and it's over and over, and it's that same vicious cycle. And I was putting myself around toxic people and then wondering why they were hurting me and why did this happen to me? Woe is me. And then once you realize and you change it, that's when all of a sudden everybody in your circle is amazing and is in the same self-development world or whatever you're into, that you realize, why didn't I do this sooner? Why did I seek validation from people who don't give a shit about me? What is that going to accomplish for me?
Right. And so for you, when was the moment that you realized that you needed to make that change and start looking inward at yourself?
I think for me, it was that 2 years ago, I hit rock bottom, and I have this case where I felt like I'm so unlovable, and that's just from childhood trauma, and I'm unlovable, unlovable, and again, I'm seeking validation from people who don't love me. And before giving up on love, I thought, what has been the reason why you held on so long? Like, why have you been holding on and trying so hard? And maybe we think about love, and maybe love isn't what we've been told about, and it's not all about romance and attraction. Maybe being loved is about friendship, about having that one friend who's there for you, who understands you, and who, even at your worst. So I'm sitting there feeling unloved, and nobody really knew what I was going through because I was pushing everybody that loved me away because no one loves me, no one loves me. So I created that in my life. You speak it to yourself, you're going to have that surrounding. So I called up a good friend of mine and I said, I need help. I'm in a really dark place, and I don't want to say I was suicidal or anything, but it could have gone there. It could have been. It was just if you talk so bad to yourself for so long, you never know where you're going to end up. And that right there, his reaction was proof of love. And the fact that I was so blinded by the people who did love me because I was seeking validation from the wrong ones for so long, it opened my eyes to realize that I was loved and I was lovable. And the only person that was telling me I wasn't lovable was myself.
Yeah. How did you come to that realization?
From that friend. And then because I was at the worst place of my life, and just me calling him and being vulnerable and having him not judge me and having him understand me, coming over and giving me a hug was like, wow, it's not as hard as I'm making it out to be.
Yeah. And because you were able to open up to him,
yeah,
and finally tell someone what you've been going through.
Exactly.
And he showed you that you are loved.
Exactly. And that I didn't deserve the things that I went through, and it wasn't my fault. 90% of the time when someone treats you poorly, it's because of their own struggles, not because of anything you've done. But I needed to hear that from somebody. And since I haven't opened up to anybody, I was so closed off, and I pushed everybody who had an ounce of care that cared about me at all away from me. It wasn't until I finally opened up myself to someone that I realized that I had loved the whole time, and I was obsessed.
Because you didn't see it in yourself, so you couldn't see it in
yeah.
others when they were giving it to you.
Exactly. And I only wanted the ones that were bullying me, the toxic. And it was like a disease. And then a week later, he enrolled me into Landmark. And it changed my life.
So describe just real quick, what is Landmark?
Landmark is a self-development curriculum where there's basic, advanced, and leadership. And the basic is where you realize what you need to let go, and then advances, how do you work through it now that you've realized, what's been holding you back, and then leadership is how to share it with others. So it's like a Tony Robbins or MITT self-development course, and that's what opened my eyes to starting my podcast and loving to listen to others people's stories, and how we all relate to everyone, and we all are connected.
How long ago has it been since you did Landmark?
Almost 2 years, like 18 months.
Yeah, and I can imagine how much your life has shifted since then.
Yeah, it has. And I mean, it was scary. It's scary to realize that you need to make a change, and that, to be uncomfortable, being comfortable. I'm still uncomfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, it's me too, girl. Me too. I do things almost on a daily basis that push me out of my comfort zone, and it still scares me every day. But that's how you grow.
Exactly.
Right? And you are stepping into your own truth now and learning how to love yourself, because it all starts with you.
Yeah. You have to inspire. You have to be inspired in order to inspire others. So I needed to inspire myself and motivate myself before I can start helping others, because at the end of the day, that's all I want to do is help others. But how can I help others if I don't help myself?
Yeah.
So.
Right. And so now you're using all of the tools you've been given and the things that you've learned in the last couple of years, and you're turning it around to help others. And now you're spreading your love and your light in the proper direction.
Yeah. And I love it, and it's scary, and it's exciting, and the feedback most of the time has been great, and sometimes it's not great, but that's how you grow. You take all the feedback and you just continue to grow. And I don't regret anything, even the bullying, because it made me who I am. Our stories make us who we are. And as long as you use it as a positive light versus a crutch, I think everybody can grow from whatever story they have.
Right. And you have taken your victim story now to a hero's story.
Thank you.
And the way you tell it, you don't, like you said, everything in our life has made us who we are. And you can't regret the past. You can only take the lessons from it and move forward. And you're doing exactly that.
Yeah. And it's been, it's been a lot of bumps in the roads. I still have my breakdowns and breakthrough moments. But what is life without breaking down and realizing, okay, I can do better, versus always being right, or always doing always knowing what's next.
Yep. Failing is how we learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfection doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And life's always going to continue to challenge us. And we just got to keep taking what we know and stand in our truth and keep growing right along with all the challenges.
Yeah, claiming your truth.
That's right. So you also participated in the Unleash You campaign.
I did.
And that's a photo campaign in partnership with Boo to Bullying. And they help shed the disempowering labels that we carry around with us. So what was it like for you to participate in that campaign?
It was really emotional, and I was part of their original campaign, like their very first campaign that they came out with. And so I didn't have any examples really to see of other women who've done it, and kind of like see what words they chose and their experience. So I kind of went in blindly, and I didn't realize how emotional it was going to be for me, like writing the words on and removing the ones that no longer served me. It was freeing in a way, even though it was just a marker on my back. It was very powerful to let go of something that I've carried on for so many years and that no longer were valid in my life.
Yeah, that you didn't need to hold on to anymore. So For listeners who aren't familiar with the campaign, I'll include it in the show notes as well as everything else. But what they ask you to bring in 4 empowering words and 4 disempowering words, and they write them on your back. And they go through with you through the photo shoot and then eventually wipe away the disempowering labels. And it's ceremonial when they wipe away those disempowering labels. I participated in it as well, and I didn't think that it would be as emotional for me either. And I cried when they wiped away those labels.
I believe it. I mean, I would assume everybody did. Everybody would have an emotional feeling because it takes a lot of courage to stand in there nude almost, bareback, your arms crossing your chest, and own up to those words that no longer serve you. And announce to the world, these words are no longer part of my life. Yeah. It's very, very powerful.
Yeah. And then to be the before pictures with all of the words mixed together on you were, how does it make you feel? And we're scrunched up in a little ball and we're contorted and we're showing through our body how those words impact us. And then when they're wiped away, the after photos are of freedom and dancing. It was, oh gosh.
I have both photos up on my Instagram, the before photo and after photo. And I have some people who are, oh my God, how can you put a nude photo on? It's not nude. It's just my back. I mean, there's other girls in bikinis and everyone loves those photos. But I don't care. It was such a, like I said, powerful moment for me, an emotional moment. I don't care if you don't like it. This was such a life-changing moment for me to let go of those bullying words, loner, bitch, outcast, or whatever the words I chose. I don't even remember anymore because they're not in my vocabulary. Yep. And it doesn't matter what you think of it or if you like it or not. It's just the feelings that it brought in my life. So
it was your journey and it was what you needed to do and part of your healing. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks.
That was actually the beginning of when I just started on the idea of my podcast, because I talked to the Unleashed girls, Jane and Seek, about my podcast, and I would love to interview them. So they were one of the first ones I've interviewed. And it would be 2 years this November. So almost 14 months ago. And sometimes I feel like if you're not there in certain moments, like how different will your life be? If I wasn't there at that Unleashed shoot, letting go of those bullying words, would I have started my podcast? And not that they gave me the idea, but letting go of those words inspired me to move forward with my podcast. Like, you know what? I'm not going to listen to anybody. A lot of people told me there's 500,000, well, 1 million now podcasts. What's going to make yours any different? Like, no one's going to listen. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not doing it for to have 1 million listeners. If that happens, great. But if I changed one listener, for you, an example, I had no idea the impact that it was making in your life. And that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So it's like certain moments that we choose to go forward with decisions. If that didn't happen, like, where would we be? So I'm grateful for everything that has happened because it helped you in your podcast launch. It's helped others that have listened and wrote reviews on how it changed their lives. And it's like a ripple effect from one event to another. And it's pretty awesome.
Yep. And like you said earlier, when we start to step into our heart space instead of our fear, who we choose to surround ourselves with changes. Yeah. And in the past year, 2 years, similar to you, I've also been on a very big personal development journey, learned so much about myself and growing into a whole new space. And the people that I've met, like you, for example, and who I've been aligned with, I couldn't have even imagined that if I could sit down and design my best friend group. I mean, it's just, and it all comes to you as the way it's supposed to in its own timing. So trusting that timing as well is important because you had to go through exactly what you needed to go through in your own timeline to get where you are today. Yeah. And where you are today is very strong and in a so much better and confident place than probably ever, I personally, I don't know you as well as I'd like to, but
we will.
I just see it like so for example, when I was getting to know you and I was looking through your social media and looking back at some of your Instagram posts just to kind of understand your story a little better. I don't know if you realize this, but I started to see as time went on closer and closer to where we are today, your photos changed. You in your photos. You smiled differently. You glowed differently. You look happier. You look more confident. And all of that, without even you realizing, was evolving naturally. And I could see it all in your timeline of photos.
Thank you. That means a lot, because there's some days where I feel like I've made no progress, and I know we're our hardest critic, but it's good to hear from a third person, like a third party, that like an outsider, what that doesn't even know you, the progress, as you would say. And I do see that progression as well. And I'm posting differently, and it's not superficial anymore as trying to get those million likes or whatever you would call it. It's more authentic and just trying to reach the ones that need to hear it.
What are some of the things that you're working on for this year? Like, what are some of your goals in 2020 that you're working towards?
I'm doing a flip the script episode, a little similar to this interview, but Ben Whitehair, who was my very first interviewee, and he's coming back on the show to kind of do a 1-year anniversary episode, and he's going to be the one interviewing me.
Oh, exciting.
So we're going to go even deeper and talk probably for an hour and a half and slim it down to edit it down to what needs to be edited, and, the real Franny. Not that I'm fake whatsoever, but just kind of let people know that I'm not perfect, and I'm just like you, and here's my story and claiming my truth. So I'm really excited for that, and I know my listeners have been waiting that tell all episode, and it's scary because I have some horrible things that I've done in my past, and I talk about people who bullied me, but I'm no better. I've done things that are unforgivable, like the decision. And there's a line that we cross that sometimes it starts to fade, like that line of like good and bad, and that I've definitely have had to work through to forgive myself for doing. It's just I was a bad friend to good people, or I made poor decisions, or I was in the wrong place at the wrong time because of friends that I've made, and it's just still recovering. So the trauma from that, sharing those stories, and just so people don't think I'm this Hail Mary. Not that anyone thinks that, but I don't want to act like I'm that. And
right, you're allowing yourself for your listeners to now get to know you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm, like I said to you on the phone yesterday, I'm working on doing a TEDx, applying to different schools. I'm really, really excited, and that's uncomfortable for me.
What do you want to talk about in TEDx?
So I'm going to talk about emotional trauma and how we build our own cage because of it, and that no one else can save you from it by only yourself. Mm-hmm. And then we create the cage from our own trauma, and that we have the key to it the whole time. And a lot of us don't realize that we do, and they stay inside that cage.
Yep.
And you need to free yourself. So something along those lines, and hopefully this fall. That's definitely, besides working and making a living.
Well, there's that. I wish we could just talk into this microphone and just have money rain down on us.
I know, and I would love to have my podcast be my sole source of income, but maybe it will one day, and I'm not putting any pressure on it. But the TEDx is definitely my 2020 goal.
Let's keep us updated. That would be very exciting, because we try so hard in the important relationships in our lives to stay authentic to ourselves, but when we're not aligned with the right people, it's inevitable that we start to change who we are to fit into their box. Yeah. And then before you know it, whether you're married or in a long-term relationship or whatever it may be, you've completely lost who you are.
Yeah.
And then you got to first recognize you don't fit in that box, and then have the courage to make a change.
Yeah.
And then rediscover yourself. And that's freaking hard to do sometimes.
It is hard, but once you do it, you think to yourself, why didn't I do this sooner? But like you said, everything happens at the right time it needs to happen. Whether it's a divorce or self-help or self-development courses or whatever you're going through to make a change, it all happens at the moment it needs to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So have you forgiven yourself for your past?
I have. Yes. I can confidently say yes, I have. Yeah.
And it all starts with you.
Exactly.
Nobody can change you but you.
No one. Nobody. And I had moments in my life that would wake me up in the middle of the night, that would haunt me from 15 years ago. It was like I can't continue to relive these moments. Like, just always know that that helped you make you who you are today, but just forgive yourself. Or they're always going to haunt you and you're going to relive it every single day.
Franny, if you could give your younger self any advice, what would it be?
I would say everything's going to be okay, and don't listen to anyone else but your own voice. Like, you are who you are because God made you that way. And if someone doesn't like you, that's okay. Just keep moving forward and don't worry about anything, and everything's going to fall into line for you. And easier said than done, but being bullied and growing up in like that type of environment, all you want is to feel okay. And if I can go back and tell myself that you're going to be okay, I think a weight would have been lifted off of my shoulders, and I probably would have done better in school. I probably would have had a bigger friend circle because I didn't care what others thought, and I wasn't that weird, awkward girl. And at the end of the day, I just wanted to love myself and feel okay. And I think that's what I would say to my younger self, is just like, you're amazing. You are great. You're better than okay. So you need to love yourself.
So tell me, how have these last 2 years changed you?
It's changed me, and it made me realize that I don't need to have it all figured out. I try not to think about what can happen in a month, what can happen in a year from now. I just now focus on the next 24 hours that's in front of me to get me closer to where I want to be. Like, today is another day for me to start creating my own happiness and just let everything unfold and let the universe, show me my future versus stressing out about next week and next month, and just focus on the present moment.
Yeah. Sounds like you're living with purpose and intent. Yeah. And it's the best place to
Set
be.
intentions is key.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. I love it.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Sharing your story.
I'm honored. It was a great conversation.
I think we need to know that we all have shared experiences, however they are unique solely to us, that we are all in this together.
We are in it together, and I would love to hear your story on my podcast.
Oh, be in the hot seat.
Yes. Flip the script.
I'm game.
Okay.
Well, thank you everyone for listening today. And especially to Franny for stepping into her courage and coming forth with her story. If you'd like to connect with Franny, you can find her on Instagram at Franny Nicole on the go. You can visit her website at claimingyourtruth.space, and her podcast, Claiming Your Truth, is on all your favorite listening devices. If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe, rate, and review, and more importantly, please share with anyone who you think this might resonate with. I'm Sheilla Dare, and I encourage you to live outside your comfort zone. Until next time.